Welcome friends to another r/malicious compliance video. As always, if you enjoy these videos, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. And our first story of the day is by David Gray Photography. This is a reminder that you approved this policy and agreed to abide by it. I worked in a combined IT/AV department for a somewhat large organization, so if there's any events going on, we're responsible for setting it up, which usually involves setting up sound systems, projectors and cameras, and ensuring that when someone plugs in their laptop, it functions as expected. For years, we got a lot of last-minute requests. Some of them were literally along the lines of, "We're having a gathering tomorrow with 300 people. We need audio and projectors set up for 9 a.m. tomorrow, and for you to advance the slides for us. Plus, this video in my PowerPoint presentation doesn't work. Can you fix it up? We know you leave work in half an hour, but can you set it up?" We knew about this for weeks, but nobody thought to tell you. So one day we complained to our manager, who agreed it was BS and asked us to draft a policy that he could take to upper management and get them to sign off on. We did, and it was very straightforward. You need to give at least 5 business days notice for events, presentations/media must be finalized, and playable without internet access. One less thing to go wrong, and you're responsible for advancing the slides because we're there to fix computer issues, not read your script and press buttons. Our manager took it to upper management, who agreed it was a good idea, and they signed off on it, and it was distributed to all staff. We had some people slip up, but they were held accountable and promised not to do it again. One day, someone from upper management emailed us. Let's call him Bill. Bill was holding an event for 600 people with a guest speaker who had to be booked weeks in advance. The guest would need their laptop connected to the internet because they had YouTube videos, the projector set up, and wireless microphones set up because they'd hand mics around for people to participate. The speaker was due to speak Monday morning, and it was Thursday lunchtime. Plenty of time to set it up, but less than the 5 business days notice, plus we were double booked by someone who followed the rules, so we said no, even though he was upper management. Bill was not happy. He demanded to know why we were refusing to set things up when there were at least 12 working hours between now and the event, and all that was required was to power on the projector, turn on the mixer and turn on the microphones, and then set up the person's laptop when they arrived Monday. Our manager heard his complaints and sent him an email. "Dear Bill, my team has said no to setting up for this event, and I support their decision. Attached is the policy on event support. This is a reminder that you approved this policy and agreed to abide by it. Attached are general instructions on how to set things up yourself. Best of luck." Bill managed to run the event without us, but he had to do a lot of running around and had a bunch of technical issues that interrupted the event. But at least he learned that if you sign off on the rules, you need to abide by the rules, because he hasn't slipped up since. The great thing about this policy is not only does it prevent you from having to take unreasonable requests, but as a learning tool for anybody that does any kind of requests in the future, one slip up is all it takes for them to know that they need to be on top of that ASAP. Would you say that when it comes to stuff like scheduling things, you might be a little bit more of a procrastinator, or do you like to get it done as soon as possible, no questions asked? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by Ethanopia. Won't let me graduate college on time? This happened 7 years ago. Senior year, I realized I could add an anthropology major to my degree and still graduate in time. I scheduled the appropriate classes to meet this new goal, but a class I needed was canceled at the last minute because of low interest, so I signed up for a bunch of blow-off classes because all I needed were electives for my major. I go through the semester, and every once in a while I get emails about not being scheduled to correctly graduate and that the deadline's already passed to meet these requirements. I replied to these advisors saying I decided not to get my minor and should still be good to go. Eventually, I decided to call and talk to them. Turns out I needed upper-level electives, so my Anth 101 and Basket Weaving for Idiots 102 didn't count for that requirement. I go in to talk to an advisor and talk to them. I ended up getting the assistant dean for this meeting. I asked them why they didn't notify me of the graduation issue sooner, before the deadline, to add or drop classes. They said that they aren't notified of canceled classes until much later. I asked if I could take some online classes very quickly and graduate on time. She said I could take online classes to fulfill the requirement, but they have a policy where you can't graduate the same semester that you take online classes because the grades might not come in on time. I asked them if I can appeal this policy. They said I could, but that I signed this paperwork saying any schedule change must be approved by the dean of my college during my final meeting with my advisor before the last semester, so it was unlikely to be granted. So you're saying that the only thing keeping me from winning an appeal of this policy is this paperwork I signed? Cool. I signed up for 2 senior-level reading and essay-intensive history classes. You're allowed to do a maximum of 3 weeks worth of work per week for online classes at this university. I had 9 weeks before the end of the semester, and the shortest window to complete these classes is 6. I wrote an average of 64 pages of essays a week for 6 weeks straight to get done in the 6 weeks. Grades got posted about 1 week before the end of the semester. Cue the malicious compliance. I write my appeal of the policy. I attach a copy of my signed paperwork that says any schedule change must be approved by a dean of my college. I also point out how assistant dean tells me that they aren't notified of canceled classes. How could this canceled class that initially made me not scheduled correctly to graduate be removed from my schedule without my dean's approval? You, the college, violated this agreement that you had me sign. 1 week later, I was presented with my hand-labeled diploma that was not kept in the alphabetical and printed labeled diplomas of the other graduating students. I squeezed through so late that they couldn't even print a label for the envelope. Always read the wording of the things you sign when trying to get out of them. This agreement simply stated a schedule change, not a schedule change made by me. I think a good thing in general to note is just always double read everything that you actually sign. If anybody tries to give you crap for reading over a contract you're about to put your signature and legally bind yourself to, they have no right to do that. Especially outside of academics, if you're talking like contractors for some kind of job, it's always just really good to make sure you read over the contract and understand what's actually going to happen and what you're legally bound to if you sign. Because Lord knows I've been burned once or twice already, and it's just not fun, and I learned my lesson. This next story is by The Puzzler. You don't want me to work a flexible schedule to help you out? Okay. Years ago, I had a job as a half-time telecommuter back when this was rare. I worked for a small, fairly independent public-serving program of a state agency. The other half of my time, I had side gigs. This worked well until leadership changed and a big new public resource document began. I was used to being a freelancer. This half-time job with benefits and taxes taken out was not my usual situation, so I operated more like a consultant, to their advantage. I only billed them on my timesheet for the actual time worked, like a consultant would, so I didn't get paid for breaks or chit-chat time or office party time, didn't use my sick leave, and was available whenever they needed me. When this big public resource document project came up, I worked on it at all hours, even until 1 a.m., to make each of the rolling deadlines. Believe me, the folks in the office were not working this way. This was a state job. But it had been so long since I'd been in a regular job that I didn't have a clue how much this deviated from the other state workers on the team. But more and more work got added until in 1 month, I accrued 60 hours of comp time that they owed me, but I couldn't take off because of the deadlines. More work was being added and there was no sign of a plan to get me paid for it. Meanwhile, I wasn't getting to do the work for my side gigs since my telecommute job was taking up so much of my time, so my income was seriously affected. I started setting polite limits, and that's when my relationship with my direct supervisor went way downhill. You've assigned me 3 major projects for this week. I can realistically do 2 of them at most. How do you want to prioritize? Was met with, do it on the weekend. And when I said no, he was livid. In retaliation for my modest limit setting, he decided that he was being too flexible with me and that had to stop. He insisted that I choose specific hours and work those exact hours every day. I tried to explain that this would not be to his benefit, but he was really stuck on the idea that this situation was benefiting me, not him. So I picked 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., knowing that most of the staff rolled in at about 9 a.m., and then I got real strict about it. I took my daily break at the exact same time every day, which I'd never even thought about taking before. I started using sick leave for doctor's appointments, which cut into my 4-hour shift substantially sometimes, and I logged off at noon exactly and stopped picking up the phone from my boss or answering his emails for the day. When they didn't have work ready for me until after 12 p.m., then no work got done for that day, just like if I'd been in the office with nothing to do, which really didn't help them meet those deadlines. Oh, those voicemail messages he left me. "I know you're there," he'd say at 12:05 p.m. when I wouldn't pick up. "I need this done. We have a deadline. Why aren't you working now?" Good times. We kept it that way until I quit a few months later, after we worked out how I'd get reimbursed for the comp time. I found it totally astounding that he could not foresee this coming or understand what was happening when it happened, but this was years before Reddit, and I've since learned that there are a lot of people like this out there. Definitely just an unorganized business model in general. They seemed more than content to just take OP's work and time without knowing how they're actually going to compensate or organize in retrospect. To me, it seemed like it was already going rapidly downhill. Our next story is by Long-Suffering Squid, Using Our Best Judgment. Part of my job involves me entering service and repair orders, and just before I finish entering an order, the system prompts me, "Do you want to escalate this order to the quality assurance team?" Now, there's a number of official types of reasons why orders should be escalated, with examples ranging from, "This device has been in repair 6 times over the past 2 months," to, "These devices are making my ears bleed," but over the years, I found that the only good reason to escalate an order is if the customer asks for it. If they don't ask for the escalation, then they don't consider the problem significant enough. However, anytime my group gets a new manager, we get a memo or have a conversation that goes something like this. "I've gone over the requirements for the service orders, and I want to remind everyone to escalate orders to quality assurance according to the strict guidelines." Then a random team member says, "But not all orders need to be escalated." The manager says, "Well, just follow the guidelines." Second random team member says, "But the guidelines aren't always clear. Some people need repairs more often due to medical issues not related to the device." The new manager says, "Just use your best judgment. If in doubt, escalate it." We do as the manager says, but invariably 1 to 2 weeks later, the new manager says, "You folks are escalating too many orders. The quality assurance team's complaining about the extra workload, and our customers are panicking because we keep calling them over issues they thought were minor." The random team members say, "What should we do?" The new manager says, "Just stop escalating so much. Use your best judgment." So, according to our best judgment, we go right back to what we did before, escalating only those orders requested by customers. 1 to 2 weeks later, we get a memo from new manager, "QA and our customers are happy again. Keep up the good work on your escalating, folks." A version of the situation has repeated at least 3 times since I've been at this job, maybe 4. And more senior coworkers remember it happening multiple times before I started. We've started a betting pool on how quickly until the next new manager gets into this situation and starts panicking. I guess they really don't lie when they say history repeats itself. I feel like, in a way, you can't really blame them though, because they're just trying to do their job. They kind of just have to learn the hard way. And our final story of the day is by BigFrame8879, Work to Rule. I once worked at a delivery place. We all had our work instructions stuck by our work area. One day, it was super busy, and I asked if I could be cut some slack by not doing the sorting and only doing the prep to try and catch up. "No, do what your instructions say." I try to explain the workload can't be managed. Manager gets another manager over to confirm it is a "No, do as the instructions say." I try one last time. They say, "No, and I'm watching you." Okay, so I do as the instructions say, to the absolute letter. Manager then asks if I can cut some corners to help them out get the stuff loaded. No, with a cup of no and an extra side of no, I will follow his original order to do what the written instructions say, and I do not budge. He ends up having to pay for 2 extra staff to clear the backlog on overtime. Screw him. They're not going to do any favors and listen to your concerns. Then, while you're busy with those concerns they sent you off to deal with, it's no surprise that on top of all that, you're not going to bend over backwards again. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So of all these stories I've read today, which is your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.